Friday wrapped up one of the strangest record weeks we've had in a while because a normal week is simple. Market goes up, big names lead, everything moves together. That's usually the script. But last week didn't follow it. I mean, yeah, both Nasdaq and S&P printed another record, but Nvidia and Meta both finished the week red. And you have to understand this. On a record week, that's not normal, and it's not random either. Something is shifting inside the AI trade, and Friday gave us a clean look at it. So let me walk you through what actually happened, what it means, and how I'm thinking about Monday. Just a quick note, if you want simple, no BS breakdowns so you can walk into the next session better prepared instead of guessing, consider subscribing. Quick scoreboard. S&P and Nasdaq both closed at records. Dow was red, small caps were green. So right away, you've got a split. Nasdaq strong, Dow weak. That tells me this wasn't broad strength. This was just a few names doing most of the work. So who pulled? Well, mostly just one name, and it was Apple. Friday, Apple ran more than 3%. And yeah, the quarter was strong, but that's not what mattered. The real move came from the guide, because Apple basically told the market next quarter is going to be stronger than people expected. And when a company that big says that, expectations reset fast. So this wasn't just a good quarter, this was Apple raising the bar. And it ended up doing most of the heavy lifting behind those record highs. Now, if you zoom out, because this is where it actually matters, the Mag 7 didn't move together this week. Apple, Google, Tesla, green, yes, but Nvidia and Meta, red. So you got to ask why. Well, Nvidia got hit after a report that OpenAI isn't growing as fast as expected. And OpenAI is a major customer. So if their growth slows, the demand slows. Simple chain reaction. Meta's, on the other side, is a little bit different. Still spending heavily on AI, and that market is not sure when that spending actually will pay off. So step back for a second. 3 names winning because they're monetizing now. 2 names struggling because the payoff is still ahead. That's the shift. That's the shift I'm talking about. This is no longer just one AI trade. It's starting to split. And once that starts to happen, it usually continues. And this is what most traders miss. They see Nasdaq up, they assume everything tech ran, but it didn't. Being long Apple Friday and being long Nvidia Friday are completely different trades. That's the difference between following the market and actually understanding it. So heading into Monday, this is where it gets interesting. Because now the question isn't what happened, it's whether this split continues or snaps back together. So looking at some of the levels, let's start with Qs. I've got some interesting levels on Qs here. So interestingly, now the thing we need to watch out for is, do we get some sort of a pullback? Do we get some sort of pullback into 666, 665 area? Those are still all buyable zones. As long as the market, see, the thing is the market is still bullish, but the sentiment is shifting a little bit. So we have to look at what the broad market is doing. So as long as the broad market has some strength behind it, we're going to look to buy those pullbacks. When we get those pullbacks, we're going to buy them. So I have this level marked out here, 665. That's a pretty solid buying opportunity, and this is where, right? This, as long as we are trading above 664.50, as long as we're trading above those level heading into Monday and next week, we're still good. We're still bullish. The trend still continues. But even if we trade below 64.50, that just doesn't necessarily mean that, the trend has reversed, but that is something that we're going to pay very close attention to. So just keep an eye out for that level. 664.50 is on the cues. If we get a pullback, do we hold that level? If we fail to hold that level, right, then that level will become resistance. Maybe, maybe not. But that level is really critical. So I'm watching for that level when it comes to Q. Now, speaking of SPY is a little bit different. Now, the thing is, SPY, that daily close, that's a little bit interesting. I mean, I'll be honest, like that's not a good looking candle. That's almost like a reversal signal on SPY. But there are still some levels we're going to be watching very carefully. Do we get some sort of a pullback into 712.50? Can we get a pullback? And does that 712.50 actually become support and goes for another push towards 725? That's something that we'll have to see the next day when we open to trade. Whether that happens on Monday, Tuesday, this week, we'll see. As long as SPY is trading above 712.50, the bullish trend is still intact. But if SPY is trading below 712.50, does that mean the trend has reversed? No, but that then becomes a deeper pullback. Then we reassess, we reanalyze, and then we'll see what those areas are where we want to be long the market. Remember, we're not considering shorting the market. We're just looking for pullback entries. And of course, if the trend in the market reverses, then we turn the script, then we look for shorts. But now I'm not looking for shorts. I'm just looking for pullback entries. And if I get proved wrong on those pullbacks, then so be it. Then we'll reassess, and then we'll go from there. SMH, right? That's the semiconductor index right here. So some of the areas I'm watching are, can we get a break above 510? That's the level SMH has tried to break 3 times in the past week or so. So essentially, I mean, you could say that essentially becomes a triple top. So the question is, does SMH breaks above 510 and continues with the momentum, or we get some sort of pullback on SMH, then good buying opportunities would be around 488 area that I will be watching very closely. Those are your broad index. Now, speaking about some of the momentum stocks that we had on Friday. Apple, look, Apple had a break like this wedge here. Apple tried to break that wedge so many times in the past. Once, twice, 3, 4 times here, and then eventually it broke through out of that. We had a triple top, right? We had a triple top, which it actually, with the gap up, it was able to open above that. So now the question is, on Apple, there's actually 2 triple tops. There's this 275, and then there's also 280. So now question is, does Apple open above 280, right? And then the 280 becomes support. Then we may look for a push towards 286 and possibly all-time high. That's one thesis. But the other one is, do we get a fade? And if we do get a fade, then the 275 has to hold for any bullish momentum. Because if you lose that 275, then I'm afraid you're coming right back to 270. And then that changes the dynamics a little bit. So preferably, we want to see 280 hold, right? We want to see 280 hold. That's a triple top. But if 280 doesn't hold, then I'm looking for that 275 on Apple. Intel is the other name that I'm watching very closely. Beautiful continuation play, right? That's a beautiful continuation play, and that happened on Friday. So now all I'm really looking for is do we get a continuation move above $100, right? That's the first move I'm looking for. Or we get some sort of pullbacks into 98 or a deeper pullback back into 92s. That's something will be interesting to see, because any areas, like any pullbacks deep into this accumulation base, 92, that's a good buyable longs for me anyways. So, but the market has to prove itself. But I'm watching very closely. Do we get a deeper pullback or we get a continuation above $100? Those are the levels I'm watching. Now, speaking of some weaker stocks that we had last week, let's look at Meta. Meta is unfortunately kind of just range bound at this point of time. I don't really have any trades on Meta, but there are some levels that I'm watching, right? And I will watch for these two levels that I got on my chart, either to break onto the upside or to the downside. If it does break to the downside, we do have some good support areas, but I don't want to catch a falling knife. When a stock is, pulling back as what Meta is doing, I'm not looking to buy dips. No, I'm looking to short the moves. As long as the weakness is there, then I'm going to look for shorts. But if the market is strong, then those shorts are a little bit difficult to, do. But I'm just keeping an open mind. I'm not looking for dips, but I am looking for opportunities either way. But those have to be really good opportunities. So that's why I have my levels marked out on Meta. And I'm just going to watch. I'm just going to wait and see how the price action behaves when it is around those price level. Right now, it's just in a channel. This is not something I will be interested in. Not for now, anyways. But that could change depending on what kind of price action we get. Then the other one is Nvidia. Now, interestingly, Nvidia had a failed all-time breakout. Right. So again, this is the same thesis I mentioned earlier. Are we seeing some sort of selling that's going to continue into the next week on Nvidia? Because it's really interesting right now. Nvidia is forming sort of like a head and shoulder pattern. So you got head, left shoulder, and possibly a right shoulder formation. So we'll see how that goes, but definitely there is weakness in Nvidia right now. So really the critical area for Nvidia to hold right now is 197. If Nvidia lose $197, then it's not looking too good for Nvidia. We may get further downside. Right now, I'm just putting Nvidia on a close watch, and I'm just seeing how it's going to react on certain areas. Right now, it's testing 197. So the first question is, does it actually hold 197? That's something that I will be watching very carefully. Palantir is another name that I'm watching very carefully heading into next week. Palantir is supposed to be announcing its earnings, and I'm noticing this trend here that Palantir has tried to break in the past. If we get, now on Friday's session, we came pretty close at breaking this ascending or descending trend. It came pretty close of breaking that. So if we get a break above this trend line, I'm looking for Palantir for possibly for long positions, but we'll see how the price action behaves. But this is something that I'm watching very closely heading into next week. Looking at AMD, we have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. And AMD just did another breakout here of its high that it made on Friday on the great news. Remember, like when Intel raised their guidance, it had a similar impact on AMD as well. AMD is due to report their earnings soon as well. So I'm keeping a close eye on AMD. Does AMD hold 355 area for a continuation move up? So we may get a pullback into 353. That would be an ideal spot for me to go long. But if it gets any deeper than that, then that changes the equation a little bit. But I am thinking if we can get some sort of pullback into 353, I'm looking to go along on that. MU is the last one I'm going to show you. So MU had, this 531 resistance, and it tried to break it once, twice, third, and then eventually it broke through it. Now the question is, does that $531 that that was the previous resistance, does that turn into support? So I'm going to be watching for any sort of pullbacks into 531 for a possible long entry on MU. But if 531 fails to hold, then I'm going to maybe switch my bias and look for a pullback. But like I said, these shorting opportunities in a market when it's strong, those are really not your best risk reward setups, but I'm going to keep an open eye on it. I will see how the price action behaves and then take my trades based on that. You know what? I'm going to also show you Microsoft. Now, Microsoft is very interesting. Microsoft had a double bottom and it bounced off, and it's right above 413. That was a previous breakout area. It's above that level. It tested that level and it's trading above that level. Right now, I don't really have a trade on Microsoft that I'm keen on taking, but I'm just keeping a close eye on it for now. Does that 413 becomes a new base for Microsoft to continue going higher, or we start rejecting 413, then, the bias changes a little bit. Anyways, those are some of the names that I'm watching into next week. I hope you find this useful. If you did, consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.